The last thing we want to talk about this evening is really the reason we're here. A lot of us heard after tea parties around the country, time and time again, people would say, well, what is the next step? We had a phenomenal experience here, and we want to know where we go from here. And out of that came the We the People Revolution Next Steps training course, out of the realization that this was what needed to happen. Two things that are going to happen tonight in just a little while. As you're walking out the door, you will get a certificate of completion for having been a part of this evening. And I will show you exactly what that says and everything. But basically, it is a commissioning because you are a part of what we are already all part of us, those of you who are involved and are continually involved in this, an ambassador task force doing two things: educating folks on what civic literacy is all about and how to interact, how to use the system positively, and create events. And that's what I want to focus on here at the end. A big part of what we're doing is the multiplicity factor, because we realize that it's one thing to come get trained, it's one thing to come to an event, it's an entirely different thing to create an event that has perpetual, can really drive traffic and bring numbers. And why do I say that? Because there's one thing we know in the media, and speaking from somebody from the media, that attracts us like a magnet. If you have this, you have us. It does not care. I do not care what the topic is. Remember, we spoke earlier in one of the earlier sessions about it. The matter doesn't matter. The results do not matter. All that matters is who is doing it, who is saying it, and who's involved. Here's the ticket. Numbers are king for media. It does not matter why you assembled. Numbers equal momentum equal commercial viability. And consequently, news. If you have numbers, you have news. And it doesn't matter what it's about. If you have an Atlanta Tea Party that has 5,000 folks, you have news. Show up. 15 to 20,000 folks, you have news. Show up. We talk all the time about, oh, the media's bias, ideological perspectives. They're going to come or they're not going to participate based on their ideology. Doesn't matter, folks. If it's big enough, they'll ignore it to an extent, and we've seen that with some of the Tea Parties. But they will give it an honorable mention most of the time. And a lot of times, especially the local affiliates, will show up. So what I'm going to do in the next, literally, go through this like lightning, is a to-do list. If you follow this list and check off these items, you will create an event. By the time you get to the end of this list, you will have an event on your hands. And all of this is logistical stuff. It's designed for anyone in this room tonight to take this information, call up your friends and say, I want to have a civic literacy day at the church or at our church or synagogue, our YMCA, our Kiwanis Club. I want to do a Constitution Day festival. I want to do a tea party. I want to do whatever. All we ask is that you build it around the themes that we have spoken about, that you incorporate those in, because we really feel, and I really feel, that they're valuable. We the People Revolution stands for three tenets: limited government, personal responsibility, and a return to our constitutional roots. I've signed on to this for a lifetime. It'll be my lifetime and probably my children's as well. But we talked about eternal vigilance, as Thomas Jefferson put it. We need that. And this is how to do it. Operating on the premise that if you have numbers, if you create an event, it's one thing to talk with your elected representatives. That is essential. But one way to lobby very effectively to your elected representatives and get their attentions, along with the attentions, the hearts and the minds of the general populace, is put together something where the TV cameras are going to show up. And that's what we're talking about here. So first of all, decide your place and time. That's pretty obvious. Clearly communicate the event theme and the range. I just mentioned our theme for We the People Revolution. Secure the permits. I was on the phone this afternoon with the Georgia Building Authority. It's very easy to do. After all, we the people are the government, and we the people have every right to call them up. The Georgia Building Authority serves us and say, I would like to have an event there. Do you have availability? I was on the phone with them this afternoon because the 9/12 March on Washington, that many of you are familiar with and we're working on right down front, is looking to hold several rallies at the Capitol, kickoff rallies for a caravan. So I was on the phone saying, can we get access? Is the Capitol available? So secure the permits, because you do have to let Capitol Police know, or wherever your venue is, that you're coming. Get traditional media involved. And here's the ticket on that. I work in radio. I'm a media professional. When I do an event, and we did it tonight, I think the Beacon is here, but Beacon newspaper, North Fulton. Stephanie Milner and Reagan were working with me on this. I created, actually Jeff Carter, my brain trust in the back, he created a press release for this event. I did not email that press release out, because if I had emailed that press release out, media would not have shown up even if they were going to show up. They wouldn't show up. Why? Because I emailed it out. I'm in the media. There's a direct competition there, and the media will give attention to anything, but they won't give attention any more than they have to the guy they're competing against. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, and it is a competitive business, though we did lay our arms down, and I've worked with some fine folks over at WSB as well and WGKA that I work for to promote some of the tea parties. But if you can get someone not in the media to get traditional media involved, that's the ticket. If the email comes from someone who's a grassroots organizer, you're 10 times more likely to get the media involved. Secure audio-visual services. Get guys like Luke involved. It depends on the size of your event, but determine the size and scope of your event. What do I need for PA? What do I need for staging? Do I need PA and staging? A lot of smaller local events don't even need it. Find partners immediately to share in the work. Delegate to committees. You're a lunatic if you don't do this. And you will figure this out very quickly. Contact leaders of other grassroots church civic groups, coalitions, yada, yada, yada. Contact speakers that service the theme, whether they be local celebrities or people that think they are. And political leaders. You know, there's been a movement, and I will say this to stand against it. I am not part of the throw all of them out, all 435 members of Congress out and replace them crowd. I think it's lunacy for a variety of reasons. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it off the stage. But basically, there are local political leaders that are champions of the causes that grassroots groups like the Tea Party's are organizing right now. Tom Graves comes to mind, state representative, and he is phenomenal. He created the Jobs Act this year that, yes, the governor vetoed the bill, but Tom Graves put it through, and it had pretty much bipartisan support and passed the legislature. And he was a guy that spoke at the Atlanta Tea Party. Why? Because he had... And he's running for Congressional District 9 right now, so look him up. But he's an example of a good person to talk to. Build the event as nonpartisan. It is, folks. The stuff we're talking about here it cuts across political boundaries, and we better start cutting across political boundaries to get at the issues that we're really getting at. Remember, we opened up with the fact that we started to treat politics like a spectator sport. We cannot afford to do that anymore. We've got to look deeper at the issues. Determine expenses, then ask for sponsors to cover expenses. That's pretty self-explanatory. Cooperate with other locales to cross markets on event. If you've got an event that's pulling people in from around the country, in the case of the Atlanta Tea Party on April 15th, I talked to a guy who drove from Kansas City in an RV. Don't rule these folks out. And it usually doesn't happen that way, but Hannity has a big microphone. Collect the data. Social media viral marketing. You know all about that. We talked about it. Do a voter registration at the event. For God's sake, give them a call to action with the next step prepared. We literally put this together, and I said why, because this was not being done. We need you to share what you've experienced tonight with your network. We have several next step trainings for this. We the People Revolution coming up on yada, yada, yada. If you want to do an event and you want to talk to me about Virginia and I being involved, or if you want to take the materials as we're about to talk about and share them with your folks, by the way, we're two people and we can't do all this, so we're hoping, we're asking that you take the ball and run with it. Go to the next slide. That's the event to-do list. This is the last of them. Well, back up. Suggested committees. Those are just a list of committees. You can see them online. Next slide. A constitution of we the people. All right. There are some ambassador certificates that you will receive on the way out the door. This is just a copy. It's not, cardstock. It was nice, the real one. But anyway, we'll have your name on it, and I will read it to you because this is really what the commissioning is all about. By the way, you don't need this, obviously. There's nothing magic in this, but, we thought it'd be nice. You are a task force ambassador, and this is being presented by the We the People Revolution and Americans for Prosperity. This certificate of completion is to recognize that the aforementioned task force ambassador has completed the Next Steps training material, is now commissioned as an ambassador to teach the Next Steps training materials, coordinate events built around these themes, and to spread the message and spirit of the We the People Revolution, whether you call that or not, in a peaceful and nonviolent spirit of good citizenship and Republic American ideals. And that is a key, nonviolent citizenship. The other thing I want to talk about right here at the end is a family resolution challenge.